Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode 1 of the DrumQuig podcast, a father and son exploration through music. We're going to talk all things drums, music, influences, life, and everything in between. So, before we get any further, I want to introduce myself, Matt Quiggins, and then I've got my father, Troy. Say hi.
How are you guys doing out there in podcast land?
And our very first episode, we thought of a very special guest, somebody that's kind of been a big part of both of our lives, the one and only Mongo, Chris Foster. How you doing, man?
Happy 2024, guys. How are you?
We are
Absolutely.
good.
So, to all of you who are new to the podcast, we're going to basically, like I said, we're going to talk about a lot of things. But this first episode being filmed on the 4-year anniversary of the day that we found out that we lost the professor, the one and only Neil Peart. We're going to say Peart. We're going to say Pert. We're all going to say whatever name that's going to work out. So this is really kind of a tribute episode to him. And that's why Chris is here because if I'm not mistaken, Chris, I met you at both of the Rush shows. If not, I know we have a picture of the one, but we're gonna start with the introduction. So, Dad, if you want to go ahead and go and kind of talk about how you got into drums and how Rush influenced you, we could save that for the end. So,
My name is Troy, also known as Dad on the podcast, the older half of the DrumQuig podcast. Glad to be here, excited for where this is going to go. And as far as music, I literally started out with piano, didn't really envision drums at first, and then I morphed into trumpet. Was starting to get excited about drums. I had seen Little Ricky battle Buddy Rich on the Lucy show and was excited that that might be interesting, but I could never play like that. And then my friend Kevin Smith, I want to say ninth grade, gave me this scratched up copy of 2112 by this band called Rush. I had never heard drums like that in my life. And it was instant that although the vocals were very screechingly high, the drums were unlike anything I'd ever heard. They were just like roaring thunder, and I was immediately hooked. I think Grayson, let's see, the album before Moving Pictures, whatever that album was, I can't
Permanent
remember.
Waves.
Yeah, Permanent Waves had just came out. And that song about the radio, "The Spirit of the Radio," was out, and that song just blew me away. And I just started following all things Rush at that point. All the World's a Stage. I got into that live album, their first live album, and then Exit Stage Left came out along with Moving Pictures, and Moving Pictures was just like one of the 10 albums you have to have if you're on a desert island for sure. And it just kind of went from there. And then I introduced Rush as Matt was getting, I'd say, probably 7, 8 years old. He started showing some interest because he was banging on everything he could see, and I knew he probably had the ambition to play drums as well. And I introduced him to Rush, although at the time he said, "This is good, but I like Lars better." So and then eventually we morphed into something called Dream Theater, which we will save for another episode with the fabulous Mike Portnoy.
which
The
which
way it,
congratulations, by the way, Mike is
yes,
back.
well, welcome
Mike is
back where you
back.
belong. Where you
Yes.
belong. Absolutely.
Woo.
No digs on Mike Mangini, but welcome back, Mike Portnoy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
me and Chris have a very strange story. We didn't actually meet that day, but I fell out of the back of a truck behind Chris's store at the time where he was working, and he didn't find that out till later, and he immediately reached out, and then we found out we had a love of Rush, and we just bonded. And like Matt said, we made a point to meet at each of the shows. We were at the last 2 rounds of tours in Tampa when Rush was there. We were all there together,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and great time was had by all. But that's me in a nutshell.
And
Yeah.
it's
Take it.
that's crazy that you didn't know that was him. Like that had happened. You just knew that was a thing that had happened.
Yeah.
It's funny how the world works like that, and I meet people all the time, and one thing I've noticed with a lot of folks is that common bond, that common love of music, and it's like, wow, it's a lot of friendships are started that way, and Troy, can you believe it's been 11 years since
No, it was
we've known each other?
2013. Wow,
And,
I know.
and
Time is accelerated.
they say that's what happens when you get older.
I know. I will be 60 in less than 2 weeks, so it's
Yeah.
coming.
Well,
Yeah,
it's because we can understand time better now.
I think that's
and
true
I think that's
too.
worse.
Yes. Yeah. So
It's crazy. Well, my name's Chris. I go by the affectionately known as Mongo. Gosh, my introduction to Rush. Growing up, I had two older sisters, so I was always into uh, 70s music and whatnot. Grew up listening to just a wide variety of artists, and but I wasn't introduced to Rush until I was about 11 years old. My neighbor that lived across the street from me, Brent Christensen, comes over one day after school, and he's got moving pictures on album. He's like, dude, you got to hear this. This is absolutely incredible. First song he played, of course, Tom Sawyer. Blown away. I was like, man, this is awesome. Second song, YYZ.
Oh
And
my God.
iconic.
that song changed my life. That was like the ultimate air drumming song.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so from there, had another neighbor that lived across the street from me, Andrew DeBoer, and he invited me over his house one day. And his parents had this huge living room that was set up like a media room, and he put signals on, and I was just in my element. I feel so lucky being a child during that, or I say being a child, but growing up during that period. 80s Rush for me was just absolutely iconic, from moving pictures all the way to Power Windows. Those were probably four of my favorite albums to listen to. And can't tell you how many cassettes I went through, just listening to those things all the time. And just listening to Neil, his playing style, but not even really understanding it. I never took up drums until I was much later on in life. I was that kid in the class that always beat on the table with the pencils and whatnot. And I think I had like one of those little Sears and Roebuck drum sets that you got at Christmas time out of the toy catalog. But it was 2004 when I got my first drum set. And one of the first things that I wanted to learn how to do was learn how to try, and I emphasize the word try.
Try, yeah.
to play like Neil, which is virtually impossible. I'm a hack at best, but I enjoy playing. It's a lot of fun trying to, emulate those drummers that you grew up listening to. But it's just there was no one like him from a musical standpoint, in my opinion. And I mean, you hear it all the time. Oh, who was the best drummer? Oh, the greatest drummer was this guy. The greatest drummer was Bonham. The greatest drummer was Buddy Rich, Stuart Copeland, what have you. They're all great in their own mind. I mean, you really can't say who the greatest was. I can tell you who my favorite was.
We'll get to that.
and Neil is definitely up there.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact that his death had on me, I have only had with one other famous person, so to speak, star, Tom Petty and Neil Peart. I was impacted tremendously by their passings. No other musician, no other actor has had that effect on me.
I would have to agree, and ironically, I saw the first hint that something had happened on your Facebook, Chris.
Yep.
I said, "Oh
And I
no,
think I did too.
this
That was
can't
what
be
was
good.
crazy. Yeah.
You know, this cannot be good." And I looked it up, and it was like, I mean, I bawled for, you can ask my wife, at least 30 to 40 minutes.
Oh yeah.
It's like one of those moments where you remember exactly where you were
Mm-hmm.
and what you were doing. And I remember I was working out at Publix in Wesley Chapel. I'm leaving, done for the day. I'm walking out to my car. My phone rings, and it's a buddy of mine. He's like, "Dude, what do you think about Neil Peart?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I think about him? I think he's an awesome drummer." He goes,
Yeah.
"No, he passed away." I'm like, "Get out, man." He's like, "No, no joke, brain cancer." I'm like, "What?" And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, I started looking it up, and I'm seeing different articles and different sources reporting, and I was just numb. I just drove home, no radio, no nothing. I was just stunned.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was crazy because I remember seeing it, and the first thing I thought was Dad's gonna be crushed. Like obviously I was crushed. We talk about you guys grew up in a different era, but like I got to really appreciate everything Rush had
Mm,
by the time I was an adult. Like everything was already out there. And
yeah,
then they kept making more music, and I was like,
Right.
this is great. We don't talk. What was it? Was it Vapor Trails? Was that the weird one?
Yeah, Vapor Trails. One Little Victory was a good tune, though, with that nice double bass riff in it.
yes.
But
But the rest of that album, they probably could have kept. But
and
the
that's
Clockwork Angels had some, that was a good tour
oh,
with the
I
strings,
love that.
string
Yeah,
section, and the
Seven
Garden.
Cities of
Ironically,
Gold and
yeah,
Caravan.
the, the
But
last
I
song
got
Neil
to
writes is the Garden.
Mm,
and I got to hear it all. It was already all available to me, and it's so much
Mhm.
easier. It was like both of you told the same story. Somebody else came to you and said, "Hey, look, you need to listen to this."
yeah.
And we still remember their names.
Yeah.
I don't know where he is, but it's like Kevin Smith gave me that album. I know who it was. So
That's
and I
awesome.
and it was such an impactful day because again we all found out he died 3 days prior to them even releasing anything.
mhm.
Um, today was actually the day that they released, hey, this is what happened. So, you know, I it doesn't matter what point of my life, whether I started to get into heavier music or, what it was, Rush was always there. And I'll never forget listening to the Analog Kid. I worked like an overnight. So it's like 2 a.m. And I listened to the Analog Kid and I was like, he just said Quiggins. And I listened to it like 3 more times and I was like, okay, I know he's not saying Quiggins, but I probably should go to bed at this point because I'm hallucinating. And I woke up the next
Absolutely.
day and I listened to it again and I was like, Quickens. Oh, I'm gonna keep thinking he says Quiggins. I like how that sounds. I remember I texted you and I said, Dad, you got to listen to this. He says Quiggins, and you're like, no, no, he doesn't. But it does sound like it.
It's one of those psychology experiments where if you hear something long enough that you're told to hear, you
Yeah.
hear it whether that's what they're saying or not. So
Well, that's why eyewitness testimony is garbage. But that's an episode for a whole nother time.
that's a off topic a little bit there for that one.
No, that's fine. But it really is. We talk about this love of the three of us, and then what that's extended to. You guys having that friendship. Dad, you're in Kentucky now. Chris, you're still in Florida. Like Chris and I, we don't live that far from each other at all. And it was a nice surprise when we went to the Andy Summers, uh, experience. I'm gonna call it. And I
Yeah.
walk in, and the first person I see, the literal first person, I was like, "Huh!" I was like, "We have to get a picture and send it to Dad." Like that
I
was
would
the
say I
first thing. I'm
immediately
like,
got that picture. So
he's like, "Tell him I said
yeah,
hi." I was like, "This is us saying hi."
I'm like a bad penny, man. I turn up everywhere.
that's all right. I know you're a lover of bourbon, Chris. I do live in the bourbon capital of the world here, so
Yes, you do.
we have an extra bedroom.
And yes, I
Just
am.
saying.
Yes, I am.
Just saying.
I need to make it up there to do the bourbon trail. I've got friends who just absolutely love it. My sister and her husband went up last year and absolutely loved it. And I just need to make some time to get up there and check that out.
Yeah,
Oh,
Matt made
absolutely.
it up last year, and I didn't know he was coming, so I couldn't really plan anything. And he was in the middle of winter, so
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun because I got there, I got brought to the house, and I was sitting on the porch when he got home. And he gets out of the car, and the first thing he said is, "You're a long way from home." It's like, yes, surprise, I'm here.
oh,
That's
by the
awesome.
way, I am representing. I don't know if you can see my cup. It's like disappearing, but I am
Oh, there we go.
representing
Yeah,
the Lightning there. So
especially after the win last night, beating the Kings after
The
being
only
down.
Stanley, the only Stanley Cup.
Yes, exactly. So this is funny because my boss got us cups, and I was like, I don't understand what the big fuss is, and then I realized this is one of those cups, and I was like, oh man, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but you're right. There was only one Stanley Cup, and it's
yeah,
not that one.
yeah, that's a Turvis tumbler. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So
I'm not sure when Stanley got big again, but it's back.
I'm gonna throw out a question for you.
Mhm.
YYZ live in Canada or the album version? Which one's better?
Hmm. Wow. I
And
got
you
to go
can
with the
do the
album.
live version with or without the drum solo, but I'm gonna go with. So
I and is that the one that you're talking about? A show of hand that was off the show of hands live CD or
Russian Rio.
Russian Rio, because that is the only time I have ever heard a group of people sing along to YYZ.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
would
have
have
any
to
lyrics,
agree.
but yet they sang along with it. I was
you're not wrong.
dumbfounded.
Oh,
That was going to be my choice anyway, but there's nothing like seeing, I don't know how many thousands of people all
Oh,
going, nah, 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 nah.
no,
And then
no,
they're,
no, no,
hey,
no.
hey.
But
Yeah,
again,
that
like
was,
all you need to hear is, and at
yeah.
least three people and anywhere
in and
you
out.
are will
Yep.
finish that and go, and they'll look
Yep.
around like,
I had that
who?
for a ringtone for a while, and it's like it goes off, and people are looking around like, I know that.
And an interesting fact, and I'm sure you guys already know, but it took me years to realize he's tapping out
Morse code.
Morse code for
Mhm.
YYZ, the airport.
Yeah, which is Toronto
Yeah,
Airport.
Toronto Pearson. Another trivia question: what does YYZ stand for? And
Ooh.
that's
That's a
what
good
that
one.
was.
And there's another funny fact. We were at Tampa Bay Rays game, and they had some after baseball entertainment. ZZ Top was going to play, and before ZZ Top was Gretchen Wilson, and who was amazing. But her band, she went off the stage, and her band just started playing snippets of everything, and they started going da 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 da,
Oh,
and
that's
I'm like,
awesome.
yes. Everybody else is looking at me like, what's wrong with you? But
Like,
it
don't
was
worry.
like,
No, don't worry. We're fine. We're fine.
trust me, I know what they're playing. So
Speaking of the Rays, and this is funny, these are nice little transitional pieces, if you will.
Mhm.
First time I ever saw Rush was in 1992, Roll the Bones tour. And we saw them at Tropicana Field, which at that time was known as the Florida Thunderdome or the Suncoast
Mhm.
Dome.
I do
Um,
remember that.
I'll never forget just what an awesome experience that was. Primus opened up for him, and that was incredible. But that's the first time that I was introduced to the revolving drum riser that Neil used. And I just thought that
Mm.
was the coolest thing in the world. He's doing a drum solo, and all of a sudden this thing starts rotating. I'm going, what in the world is going on? But that was my introduction was quite the awesome show.
And I'll take you back even further because my first show was actually Power Windows, 1985,
Oh man,
Lakeland Civic Center.
yes, they
The
played
whole
the Lakeland
place, the
Civic
whole
Center
place
often.
smelled like weed because you could smoke indoors back then. And it's like I, I left. Me and my friend, his name was Paul, and we were so high when we left. We never touched anything. We didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
Wait,
No,
do you know Paul's last name? Because I swear if it's the same Paul I know that still lives here, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Ask him if he worked at Pizza Hut in 1985.
Okay, probably. So Paul is that guy, like that friend we have, who bring up any artist, anytime, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I walked in the bathroom at CBGB and Blondie was in there, doing powder in her nose," and I'm like, "What?" Like he'll have a story for anybody, but he used to go to all those shows in Lakeland, so now I'm gonna ask him. You're like, "Hey, Paul, did you used to work at Pizza Hut in
Lakers.
1985?"
Yeah. And Matt, for my birthday a couple years ago, got a ticket stub for me from that show. So,
Oh wow.
because I had to look up when it was. It's like I knew it was on certain, I knew when it was, and because I didn't even know what tour it was at the time. So,
Yeah, I
because
found
that
the
was that.
laminate, the
And you
sticker
were
for a
able to
laminate.
and you were
And the
able to
ticket.
find a ticket stub from that show.
Yeah,
eBay, man.
Incredible.
eBay.
yeah. I'll take a picture of it. Send you a text.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Yeah, well, and
that was
then
back when you had to stand in line to get tickets. I remember going to Newport Richie up there next to the gun range.
Okay.
They used to sell tickets.
Wooden Nickel was the big place here in Tampa that used to
I
sell
remember Wooden
concert
Nickel.
tickets, before like you had Specs or, the record stores. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Wooden Nickel was the place to go to get concert tickets.
Mm-hmm. Simpler times.
Yep. I'll tell you what, if there's one era that I would have loved to have gone to see them in concert, would have been from that era of, Signals, Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Power Windows is probably my all-time favorite Rush album from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a lot of people are like, oh man, they were too synthy, they were kind of getting away from their roots. But I don't know if it was just the time I was growing up in, but it's just that album had an appeal to me that still to this day, I can listen to it and it's always fresh.
Well, and they were always influenced by what was going on. Neil was always checking everything out.
Yeah.
I mean, he was enamored with Stuart Copeland, who, as we all know, later became probably one of his best friends.
Yeah.
But so there you can hear some Police type songs on some of those albums.
Speaking of Stuart Copeland, like every time I listen to the Police anymore, I hear stuff that he's doing in the background that I was like, how are you getting away with that in that song? And he's just added like 3 extra notes and like, did anybody notice? Did anybody know? No, we're good.
It's hilarious to hear him talk. His how he talks about it. He goes, if you want to become famous, he says, what you need to do is take the note and move it back half a click behind your bass player. He says, don't move it a half a click to the left. I've already done that. That's how I got famous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hilarious. But, it got me to start when I would listen to it. And he's exactly right. You can tell where he's just a hair off from, the bass groove, but it works,
Yeah, because especially if you lay behind that bass groove, it makes that groove so fat.
Yeah.
And I think of like Murder by Numbers, where it's literally, and you're just hitting that and you're like, oh, but you listen to it as a 10-year-old, because growing up in my house, like Synchronicity wasn't an album. Like it was something that got played. It was Synchronicity, Chicago, George Thorogood, Bad Company, REM. Like they're weird stuff, but that was what was going on, Mom's house. Dad's house, it was like, okay, so we got Rush, we got this, we got that, kind of, Dave Matthews, we got Dennis Chambers, whoever he was playing.
Some group called Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Which we will definitely could get into a whole show about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I love Steely Dan to this day. And the first record I ever bought on my own with my own money, first record was Steely Dan's Asia. And I'm like, come on now. Like that's just iconic. And it's so funny when you talked about, Power Windows being your first, that album that's for you. Dad, it was the first concert, first time you had seen them. I remember being probably 12 years old, and we went to California because my mom was out there for work. And I found Hold Your Fire in a thrift store for $5 and bought it, never having listened to anything on that album. And I can tell you, I probably never actually listened to that CD. I was just so happy to have a Rush CD of my own. Like this is what I had. And I remember seeing 2112 and opening that double case. And there was nothing like that at the time where you saw something and you're like, oh.
It was like the Holy Grail.
It was. Yeah, that was one
If
of
I was
those
good at
albums
graphics,
too.
there would be a moment where it would just go, ah.
You know, my mom was in the ultra Christian phase back then, so I had to hide an album that has a nice red star that looks kind of like a pentagram. You know, it's like, what is this? I don't know, Mom.
I will say this. I had my Disturbed album and Grandma found that. That did not go over well. That did not go over well at all.
Yeah, I lost Synchronicity that way too. So you saw
Really?
Ghost in the Machine. It was like, what is this? You know?
Did she chuck it? Did she actually chuck it or like?
Oh yeah.
Take it?
No, she chucked it.
Oh man.
Yeah. That was back when that backward masking stuff was going around.
Yes, yes.
Look, you really got to play Ozzy backward to find something wrong with it? I don't think so.
If you play Van Halen's Running with the Devil backwards, here's what you're going to hear.
Yeah. Well, listen to it forward.
Yeah.
Pretty self-explanatory. Exactly.
That's why I love Little Nicky, because there's that scene and he goes, "What's Ozzy trying to say here?" And he's playing it backwards and he goes, "Absolutely nothing."
Mm-hmm.
And then he grabs Chicago and he plays it backwards, and they're all like, "Oh my gosh!" Well, we went off the rails on that one.
Yeah,
So
well, that's what we do. That's
put.
What happens.
Well, that's what I wanted this to be about. You know, we've talked about this, and we talked about the concept of doing the show, and I thought of this probably like 8 months ago and didn't tell you until Thanksgiving. Chris, I think I told you before I told Dad. Just because I felt like this was a fun thing that we can do. It's something we do every day. We talk about something, we'll send each other a different drum video. We'll be like, hey, this guy's crazy, or hey, this guy's overrated. Or there's this other guy that's really annoying when he does reviews of videos. I won't say which one, but you know exactly who I'm talking about. I do get kind of mad that there are people like monopolizing and monetizing reviewing other people's videos. Like, hey, I'm going to just talk about what he's doing. And it works. But, you look at some of the things that have come from that. But to kind of circle it all back, having Chris on the show for the first one was essential for this. Because it was showing, this love of music, not just music, but drums and Rush. Having it on that in the January, anniversary of what had happened, it was kind of essential. So I'm going to put this on each of you, and then I'll answer last, of course. But
okay.
Favorite Rush song? I know Dad's, but I'm going to have Chris go first because I already know Dad's.
I might change it up on you.
Mystic Rhythms off of Power Windows.
Oh.
It's one of those songs that just the Geddy's lyrics and just how he sings it, and you really kind of get a look at Neil's brain a little bit, because with him being the main lyricist of the group and coming up with the lyrics, it's like, man, he could think really, really deep. And I could probably get a lot of flack for this, but I was absolutely enthralled with his use of electronic percussion. And I just thought that song was just such a cool sounding song. Just the fluidity of the keyboards and the synthesizer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the songs where, in my opinion, Alex's guitar playing kind of comes to the forefront. But it's just, whenever I see that video, though, I crack up because Neil's kind of got his short hair phase and kind of looks like he belongs on the set of 90210 or something like that.
The rat tail in the back, and Yeah.
But
Man.
definitely that is a song that I can listen to over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, can I have two?
You can have two, just because
Okay.
I know one of them. It's not like we know each other or anything, you know.
Yeah. One of them's absolutely Subdivisions.
Mm.
And Subdivisions is the lyrics speak to me because I live that.
Mhm.
You know, I was that geeky outside kid that was trying to look inside the bubble to see what was going on in the mall. You know, and I do love the song, you know, the hi-hat and the ride together. That was interesting. I never heard anybody do that before. Um, but my favorite is La Villa Strangiato
Oh,
from Hemispheres. The fact that they played that on the last tour, I was in heaven because I just love that. It's like, and as I like orchestra music too, and that's like an orchestral piece.
yeah.
It goes from, you know, pianissimo to full on triple forte and back down. It's got jazz, it's got rock, it's got metal. You know, it's got everything, and I love that tune.
And it's
Good
funny that
choice.
you said Subdivisions, because that was actually going to be one of mine too. Um, I wasn't gonna say the Analog Kid, but that's just because of the Quiggins thing. But you're right. Something about Subdivisions spoke to that outsider, that person who wasn't like, oh, you're not the popular kid, you know, you're not this, you're not that. And guess what, everybody? High school doesn't matter.
Yep.
Right?
True.
um, it's weird to get friend requests from people from high school, and I'm like, I haven't talked to you in 20 years. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a 40th reunion last year, and it's not that big a deal. So the same people I talked to before are the same ones I talk to now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, 3 or 4.
But I'll also, you know, like I said, I'll say Subdivisions just because that's one that stuck in my head. Obviously, Tom Sawyer, Spirit of Radio. You know, I'm hitting all the hits, but at the same time, you can't pick just one really. If we gun to your head, be like,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna be able to pick.
No, I mean the camera's eye is just so
Yeah.
awesome. Witch
Oh,
Hunt. I mean, you know, you could just go on.
Yeah.
yeah.
The stuff that did make the radio, that's just, you know, incredible. The lyrics, the music.
The trees,
Oh my God.
Lake
Yeah, the trees. Yeah.
Classic.
Lakeside Park. I'm a big fan of, and when they play, and do you realize that when they played that at the R40 concert, you know the verse that goes, "Everyone would gather on the 25th, 4th of May," and that's
Hmm.
the day that the concert was there. I thought that was so cool.
Oh
You
my
know, I was
God.
like,
Brilliant.
yeah. I wish they would have played the whole song though instead of doing that little medley. But
Right. There's
I
something with
mean,
2112 too. It's like Neil's birthday or something. There's something significant about that number.
yeah,
yeah, you're right. The May 24th, that was the R40. That was the one we all went to. That's what that shirt is
yep,
from.
Hmm.
yeah, and we took the magical picture.
Yeah, the
Yes, we
magical,
did.
which
Yes,
I
we did.
have. You know, I had
Yeah.
ready for this. Like,
And a shirt that currently does not fit. So, you
yeah,
know.
that's all of it. But that was the magical picture, and
That's why I'm sporting the Dark Side of the Moon shirt. So
I mean, I
that's a whole
thought
nother
my
show
shirt
too.
was
So
appropriate because this music is therapy for us. This music
It
got
is.
us through good times, bad times, tough times.
well, and
And
then, you know, when Neil passed away in 2020, we're like, you know, I was like, what else can happen this year? This is the worst thing that's going to happen this year. Then the pandemic happens. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, it got
yeah.
worse.
it
So,
did, and I just remember probably one of the proudest moments I've had in this. I'm trying not to get choked up about it. Was when the 2012 tour came around, and you were like, "All right, just pick tickets, and I'll pay you back." And in my mind, I was like, "I'm not letting you pay me back."
Yeah.
And I bought the tickets, and I told you how much. You were like, "Good God!" You're like, "That's for both, right?" I was like, "Each." And I just remember you were like, ... And I was like, no. I was like, you don't understand. I was like, you're not paying for this. I was like, because how many times in a lifetime is a kid gonna get to bring his dad to a Rush concert?
see, that's awesome.
And that's not to my
Apparently
own horn.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah, twice.
I was gonna say we went twice,
We
but
did go.
that wasn't like, oh, look how great it. That wasn't what that was. They're who would have known that was it for them? 2015 was that was kind of it with them walking away. So getting that opportunity and then getting to meet people like you, Chris. I feel weird calling you Mongo, but I'm gonna call you Mongo anyways.
All my friends call me Mongo.
All my friends call me. It's like the
Just
Blazing
call me
Saddle
Mongo.
reference is not lost.
Exactly,
Here, have some candy.
Mongo, not Andy.
I'm gonna have to watch that someday.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
No, you'll be fine. But I honestly couldn't see some of today's generation trying to watch it. Their heads would probably just explode.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
yeah. That certain particular moment that's the opposite of asleep would get offended.
Oh boy. We're crossing that line. We're crossing that line.
Nope,
No
we're gonna
shame in this
stay
game.
right above it.
And
We're
that's
gonna
why
hover right there.
I'm going to use this segue because we talk about heads exploding. We had Rush show up for the Taylor Hawkins Memorial, and they had guys like Danny Carey and Chad Smith playing, and it kind of refueled their ambition or their drive to tour again. So my question to both of you, who do you think could fill nobody could fill Neil's shoes. Let's just be honest there. Who do you think could fill in to play with them if they do decide to tour again?
See, I have a different theory. This is my theory about what they should do. They should call it an evening with Rush and have guest artists across the board. Guest drummers, guest vocalists, guest bassist, guitarist. I think they should kind of do it that way, and then Neil's not technically replaced. It's a different type thing, kind of like the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, where they seamlessly move people in and out, and you don't notice the difference.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Unless you're a musician who would know,
But and I mean, it would almost have to be something like that, just because, and I can't tell you how many different Rush fan Facebook pages I follow, but that seems to be just the biggest argument out there. They're never going to tour. If they do, they could never be Rush because, blah, blah, blah. But I think if you had to pick somebody, I think Danny Carey would be an excellent choice. Surprisingly, I don't want to say Stuart Copeland wouldn't be a good choice, but I just think he and Neil's drumming is kind of on a little bit opposite sides of the spectrum a little bit.
I agree.
Thomas Lang, I think he might be an option. I'd even go so far as to say someone like a Marco Miniman or a Mike Portnoy,
And I think Jason Bittner.
Oh,
he loves Neil.
Good call.
I mean, I think he could do it and do it well.
Yeah.
And that's where I am with Danny Carey. Like, I feel like that would be my only one, just because, how good of friends they were, how much Danny looked up to him, whether it's, whether we really know the capacity of how much he really meant to him. We know it's a lot. And I think the only thing that would hinder him would be that attachment that he had, and really like feeling like you said, being replaced. So I actually love the idea of the evening with Rush and kind of filtering in people, because that'd be perfect.
Well, it lets people like your Dave Grohls and your Stuart Copelands, who technically probably can't play everything, but there's songs they can play.
Mm-hmm.
Fly By Night, I'm sure Dave Grohl could tear that apart.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
oh my God.
Something like that, or Working
Mystic
Man.
Rhythms. I want to see Dave Grohl play Mystic Rhythms. Let's go. Let's get this happening right now. Like,
but and I think too it would be a nice tribute to Neil. I mean, if that's kind of, and I know they do the Bubba Bash now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Literally just happened 2 days ago.
Yeah. Tim Starachi, who I'm friends with on Facebook, and he's in the group Why Not, and they do a lot of Rush covers and what not
What
Uh,
not?
but that aside from that, I don't know that they've really had at least a big tribute for Neil in that respect. Kind of like what they did for Taylor, which was absolutely phenomenal.
It's
But
gut wrenching,
I
is what
think
that was. That hurt.
everyone I think would like to see something like that. I know I would love to, just to have different players, like you say, filtering in and out, and then maybe at the end of the show, put it all together, have Getty and Alex come out and do an encore with a couple different drummers, and I think that would be pretty cool.
Kind of like when they finished the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where they have that
Yes.
all, basically they're all out there jamming together.
Yeah.
So
It's funny how
That
many
would-
metal bands actually do that when they're all on tour together. They'll just bring everybody out and they all play together. And Dream Theater did that the last time they were here with Devin Townsend and Animals as leaders. And just to see all those guys on stage at the same time, I'm like, my brain hurts. Like, and that's what I would want to feel experiencing one of those. Just not even being able to comprehend, like walking away going, that was cool.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
getting home and being like,
and Matt Gartzka could do it.
oh, definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
That man, he literally looks like he's levitating when he's playing. Like the only time I've ever seen anything like that was the Florida Orchestra, and there was a violinist, and she was literally hovering this far above the chair the entire. She never sat down. She was just
Wow.
like right above it. And I said, because she was so into it, and I said, that's what I want, because we know no one's ever going to be able to replace him. Like,
No,
it's not even a question. And I think anybody, even if they filled his spot, they would never replace him.
No. Yeah.
And I don't want to compare that to Dream Theater because that's going to piss a lot of people off. But that's how I felt about Portnoy leaving. That's literally, and to me, you guys had
no
Neil
one can
Peart.
take his place.
I've got Portnoy. Like, Portnoy is the Neil of my generation, I'll say.
Yeah.
Because he was that all over the place, just phenomenal player that you were like, what is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to Scenes from Memory since I was 10 years old, I think. And I'm still trying to figure out drum parts.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
and then some 8-year-old on the internet does it flawlessly. So.
Yeah. Every time I see one of those videos, I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm not playing drums anymore. I'm done. But it's, hey, it gives me practice makes perfect, right? I'll share a funny story with you about Dream Theater. And this is going back to, I think, like 2004, 2005, maybe. Dream Theater was opening up for Megadeth. And at this it was at this time where I had just heard about Mike Portnoy, and a good friend of mine, Bill Mink. He worked at the drum store where I went and bought all my gear from.
We all know Bill.
You know
we
Bill.
all know Bill.
We all know Bill.
Love Bill.
And I got a funny story afterwards, so don't let me forget.
Yeah. Yes, we all know Bill.
And Bill and I just struck up an awesome relationship. No thanks to music. But, we would trade music. I'd be like, hey, man, you need to listen to Stuart Copeland, the soundtrack to Rumblefish. And he got me turned on to Marco Miniman. Well, he
loved Marco Miniman.
He had told me about Mike Portnoy. And so when I found out that Dream Theater was coming in concert, I wanted to go see him just so I could see what this guy was all about. And keeping in mind, I don't think I had even listened to a Dream Theater song prior to going to this concert.
Ooh.
But I went and we had pretty good seats. We were kind of off to the side stage a little bit. It was at Amalie Arena. And I was just absolutely blown away by this guy. And in the band as a whole, it was just like, wow, just it took progressive rock to a whole new level. Megadeth gets on stage, 3 songs in, I fall asleep. Not because they were bad, but I'd been up since like 2:30 that morning. I worked like a 12-hour day at work, and then got off work, ran home, changed, and then went to this concert. So that's kind of like my little claim to fame, good conversation piece. I tell everybody, hey, I fell asleep at a Megadeth concert. And they're like, what? They're like, were you on something? I'm like, I was stone cold sober and just crashed out.
Just crashed out.
That is a good one.
So backtrack to September of last year. Ringo comes to town at the Sound. And I had to go see it because I saw Greg Bissonette was playing drums. And we went to a Greg Bissonette drum clinic at AJ's Pro Percussion where Bill worked.
Okay.
I'm in line. The gentleman in front of me is probably about 55, 60. And I just hear him go, I was like, oh, he's like, we just kind of started talking. We were in the food line. And he goes, yeah. He goes, to be honest, he goes, I'm here to see Greg Bissonette. And I looked at him and I went, what? I was like, I could ask 1,000 people here if they know who that is, and they wouldn't know. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, met him at a drum clinic with my buddy Bill. And I looked at him and I went, Bill Mink? And he was like, get out. I'm like, I found the one guy who knew Bill. He goes, oh, I did his tile. He's like, Bill and I go back way back.
Yeah, I go back to like 85 with Bill. So
wow.
When he was a thoroughbred on Hillsborough Avenue. He had long hair.
He had the mullet going. I remember seeing pictures of him with his mullet, and I'm like, Bill, that's phenomenal.
Well,
he probably wasn't the only one that had a mullet.
Smith.
Yes.
No. I've seen your pictures. So Chad Smith when I was 10. Virgil at Mars Music.
Virgil Donati?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm saying that right.
Donati, that works for us.
Donati.
The phrase that he uttered that night has stuck with me my entire life. And someone asked him, how much did he practice? And he was like, like 18 hours a day. Wow. And we were like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, 18 hours a day, every day. We were like, oh, that's terrifying. I said, I'm never going to get to that level, ever. But we saw, through AJ's, we saw Greg Bissonette. Did we see Billy Cobham there, or was that just you? I think we both saw Billy Cobham.
I think I took you to Cobham. I saw that was my first drum clinic in like 1981.
Wow.
I saw Cobham.
I remember you bringing the picture and being excited, and I remember him
he was not.
Well, that's why we don't talk about Peter Erskine either. So
No. Peter.
Dave Weckl at was it the Holiday Inn, or was it the?
I think it was the Holiday Inn ballroom.
Right over by the stadium, and I just remember we talked about this, and somebody goes, "What's the name of your band?" And the whole room turns at this person and just yells the Dave Weckl band, like as loud as they could. And I was like, I'm a little kid and I knew this. I'm like, come on, man. Let's see. Akira Jimbo. Oh, gosh.
We saw Marco,
right? Yeah, we saw Marco.
I saw Marco.
And then we saw Marco last year or the year before. Yeah, last year.
No, it was the year before at Brass Mug when he was with the Aristocrats.
Yeah.
That was a good show.
That was an amazing show.
And I forget the name of one of the opening bands right before him.
They were so good.
A local guy. But yeah, they just had such a cool sound. But
there was a couple bands that didn't have a cool sound, but
did. So. I think they were still trying to find their sound. And that's listen, put me up on a stage and try to make me do all the equipment. I'm probably gonna mess it up too. Like, I know my way around a drum set. I know how to put together a drum set. I know what a drum key is. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
but you start telling me to plug in mics and everything. No. I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
In-ear monitors don't like them. So,
no.
But yeah, I remember seeing Marco at a drum clinic out at at All Pro Percussion when they were out in Brandon, and this was like 2006, I think.
I mean,
maybe-
did we go to that one?
No, we didn't. I never saw a drum clinic there because Sukerman was down there, and I missed that
Yeah,
one.
saw Todd Sukerman down there, saw Tommy Igo
Mhm.
down there.
Mhm.
But yeah, Marco's drum clinic was just
Insane.
absolutely insane. He's trying to teach us all, okay, I'm going to play this in 14/16, and here's how we do it. And I mean, I'm just like looking at him like I'm trying to look at a calculus exam or something. I'm going, what is going on?
I
But
know.
I was so amazed at his ability to use all four of his limbs.
Mhm.
The way that he does.
He could tap out a 4x4 with his left hand. Over here, he's doing a 7/4 with this hand, and his right foot he's doing. And I was just blown away. But all the cool thing is so many of those drummers were influenced by the Professor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean,
I would say 90% of them.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Yeah, whether the way they phrase their parts or the way they tune, because there'd be 3 verses and choruses. Each one would be a little different. Neil liked to have them a little bit. And I couldn't play like Neil, but I could do that. I could make each little bridge section different. And I always tried to do that. The way he would set up, the verse into the chorus. Just phrasing. I think phrasing. I learned drums, but I didn't know anything about theory to maybe the last 10 years. I didn't know what a paradiddle was or anything like that. So,
and I mean, I still have my stick control book. I still have a couple books. I even took drum lessons for about a year. To this day, I still cannot do a double stroke roll to save my life. I just can't. I have trouble with the speed. I can I could start off and I can work up to a point, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like a wall. I can't get past that wall. And
so what it takes to get past that is you have to isolate each hand and do all that. And mine usually turns into a press roll at some point.
Yeah.
So, where I'm buzzing it.
We're like, this is good, and see, I just upset everybody because I would hold my sticks like this, and I'm not left-handed. And then we're like, no, you need to hold it like this. And I was like, no, that doesn't work for me. I was like, this works just fine. And they'd be like,
and ironically, I am left-handed, but I play, normal.
You play as a right-handed, and that's how Stuart Copeland is. Stuart Copeland's left-handed, but he plays as a right-handed drummer.
But what I didn't learn this for years, that the typical book is right, left, right, left, right. I hear everything left, right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I hear it. And I had to learn how to make that work.
How to change it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it always made me sound a little unique because I'm kind of backwards. But Ringo said the same thing. But I had to learn that that's how I'm phrasing it in my head. And that was useful information.
Oh, of course. So to round out the show, because I think we're right at about that time. 5 most influential drummers in your life. I'm not talking the best drummers. I'm not talking give me Rolling Stones top 5. I want the 5 drummers that influence you the most. Start with Chris.
Stuart Copeland, Neil Peart, Joe Morello, Bernard Purdy, and Marco Miniman.
It's a good list.
That is a really good list. Yeah.
Eclectic.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same with mine. Because obviously, Neil, we know
we're just going to Neil and then 4 other drummers. It's like Dream Theater's greatest hit album and 21 other really cool songs. This is like 5 most influential drummers. No. It's 4 and Neil.
Yeah, I'm going to say Phil Rudd. Just the power of simplicity. Because and 2, when you're young, you can play that. But just how powerful it is when you actually start gigging, those simple beats and everybody's doing this. The simplicity. Clem Burke from Blondie, his mastery of the rolls and fills and the stuff he would get away with in a punk song was amazing. Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah.
Absolutely love Porcaro. And then I would have to say Mike Portnoy and Keith Carlock. Guy's just amazing.
Those are fun lists. Yeah, those are good lists. Right. So I'm obviously going to put Peart, and it still sounds weird to say Peart. I know that's his name, but for so much of our life, it was Peart, and I feel like saying it. So
it's because we're not Canadian, so we're okay.
Well, and Getty's name is Gary. That was a shock.
And Alex's name is about as long as this whole picture frame. So,
so obviously Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy, Stuart Copeland is also on my list. Carter Beauford.
Because that's a good one.
The Hot Rod solo that's on the Crash album, I want to say it's Say Goodbye.
I think it is.
To this day, I hear it and I try to keep up with it, and I can't. I can't do it. I'm literally like, I got it, and I lost it. And now it's gone. I never heard anything like that. The Hot Rods were not used in that way, and me knowing what they were really brought it forward for me to be like, oh, that's what that is. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's so high energy, but he makes it look effortless.
Yeah.
He's blowing bubbles while he's doing it.
Yeah, he's like chewing bubble gum. Just, hey, here we are, having a good time.
And I got to see him last year. The man's 62, and he's making it look easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not fair, man. Like, that's not fair.
No, it's not fair.
We're going to go back to Lars, because Lars was a big influence on me. Everything up until Saint Anger. And most of the things after that, still, because Lars wasn't the most technical drummer, but Lars could make anything work in a situation.
Yeah.
And I say that with like songs like One, where, even songs like Orion, which nobody knows the song Orion off Master of Puppets, is one of the only instrumental songs that Metallica does. And he's just present for that song. He's not doing anything crazy, but he makes everything that is going on the guitar side pop that much more. And I think that's what we were talking about before, like the half beat before.
Yeah.
He was doing it right on it. Every everything he did was purposeful in that. And, songs like One, obviously the iconic double bass in that. Double bass had been used to that point. Thrash was out there. Like, everything was there by the time One had come out in 86. And Justice for All came out in 80. Yeah, it was 80. No, I'm sorry. It was 88. My bad. It's a good year. Really good year for me. But, listening to that, and then see number 5, I'm gonna get flack because we have this list somewhere. Kara wrote it down somewhere, and she was like, "No, you're gonna change it." I was like, I have the same list, but there are people who influenced me, and I'm probably gonna say a drummer that, I'd love to put Marco on there, but I don't think Marco influenced me in the same way that I'll say Matt Greiner or Jordan Mancino, guys who play in August Burns Red or As I Lay Dying, where I got into that metal phase and I had to hear a different kind of drumming. Because once you got into that like heavy metal drumming, taking thrash and kind of turning it on its head, like that changed how you view drums at all.
Yeah.
Seeing the blast beat and then finding out years and years later that a blast beat is not hitting the drums at the same time. It's literally like in between, and you're going, oh, okay, that's how that works.
Mhm.
But I'll say, you know, hearing songs like, I think the As I Lay Dying song was probably 94 hours. There's just a part where it just goes ham, and it sounds very electronic. It sounds very triggered. But man, when I put that in my car and turned it all the way up and it shook the car, I was like, yes, this is drums. Like, this is it. Lost some of my hearing due to that song, but I'll take it.
What?
What?
Huh?
But really, like, you know, those lists are good. I think I'm gonna have you all send me the list so we have like them written out, because I think those are great lists to kind of go over, because really, so many drummers have influenced each one of us in our own ways.
Mhm.
The one connector, the one real connector, was the Professor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, the guy who, you know, like you said, when Portnoy came out, what did they call him? The next Neil Peart. Like, that's what he was
Mhm.
being called. To this day, people still refer to him that way. And he was even one of the choices you had said for filling in for Neil. We're never going to say replace. Let's just say that.
No.
Right now, we're
No.
just not going to say replace.
Yeah.
But you have bands out there that are doing things to kind of carry on that legacy. And actually, the next episode that we're doing, episode 2, is going to have Jeff Herb, who's actually a drummer for Solar Federation, who's a Rush cover band, who has a female singer, and they are spectacular. So I will put the link for their stuff in there. So good.
I found them and I sent it to him immediately. I said, "You got to hear this."
Yeah.
Now, where are they based out of?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to.
I think
I've heard a lot of great things about them.
Yeah, I think Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area.
Okay.
I think you sent me Xanadu, and I was like, if my eyes were closed, this is Rush. Like, this really just sounded like everything that they embody. And people need to realize a cover band should never sound exactly like the band, but damn if she doesn't pull it off. Like,
Yeah.
her Getty is spot on there.
And she's not trying to be Getty; she's being herself. But you know, it's amazing.
Absolutely. So, I just want to thank everybody for being on the show. Obviously, Dad and I were going to do this every week. Chris will definitely have you back on again.
I loved it, guys. Thank you so much.
You will be a regular contributor.
Yeah. I hope you guys like him, because he will be on the show a lot.
That's right.
I will tell everybody now. Right now, we have the next 7 episodes already, 6 or 7 already scheduled out. We're going to do them every other week. We're going to release the shows on Friday, so that way every other week you guys are going to kind of see it, and we'll put it on a schedule so you'll know exactly when the next show's coming out, and we'll definitely let you know if anything comes up as far as any scheduling issues or any reschedules. But we're going to try and keep it pretty regular, and if things start to pick up, you know, we might increase it to every week. We just don't want to overdo it, because we know right now the market's saturated. There are 1,000 other channels you guys could be watching, but not one that I found like this, where, you know, I've been drumming since I was literally 2 years old. You know, I remember my dad telling me, you picked up a stick and you were doing things people 10 years playing haven't done. And it kind of like blew my mind. And I'm like, I know that's slightly exaggerated, but it was how I held the stick and how much, tapping on things drives everyone nuts. But you get a room of drummers and you get one person to start tapping, and you've got an entire room of alternating beats and different influences and different walks.
You can find the jazz guys. You can find the rock guys, the funk guys.
Everybody's going to kind of out themselves there when it comes to that. And it's just, a beautiful community we have. So the fact that Dad, you and I do this every day, like we literally will send each other videos. It's back and forth, and when the Dream Theater news came out, I'll end on that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, it has to be April Fool's. There's no way this just out of nowhere happens. And it did. And I know that I'll be going to the Florida show. I know we'll be going to a Kentucky show. Because I've seen Dream Theater 6 or 7 times at this point. And twice with you, but never together with Portnoy. I got to see him once with Portnoy, probably like 2008, 2009 at Ruth Eckerd Hall. and it was the first time I had seen them, and they played with Zappa Plays Zappa, which if any other band had played other than Dream Theater, Zappa Plays Zappa would have been the best show I ever saw. It was so good. But it's kind of an iconic thing, and I know we didn't realize the impact that, getting that picture of the three of us that day would have. Getting to see Rush, getting to see, not realizing what was going to happen 5 years later.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the band was going to stop touring. And, if you look online, Rush essentially is only a band until 2015.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit right with me, because they're still there.
Yeah.
And they're still, influencing us. And again, you hear YYZ, anybody's going to recognize it. And people who don't even like Rush will tap along to that because they're like, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer, Subdivisions, Limelight, Spirit of Radio, Passage to Bangkok. I'm just throwing that one in because it's fun.
It's
a very fun song. But just want to thank everybody for being here. Like I said, this was a lot of fun. Getting all our schedules together, just everything worked. We're gonna work to get sponsors on the show, as you guys can see up there. We've already got banners, so
nice.
It's things we're gonna kind of do. Chris, I'll make sure you get one of those too. Don't you worry.
Thank you, man.
And I mean, you're the episode 1 OG. Like, we can't take that away from you now.
That's right, the
OG. But really, we're just gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna try and keep some structure to it going forward. Worst gig is gonna be one of the questions we're gonna have, which I think is gonna be fun. And definitely, Chris, you'll have to be on for that one because I'm sure you've got some good stories too. I can already see you. But on behalf of myself, Matt Quiggins, Dad, the one and only Mongo.
That's right. I just want to say, if you like the podcast, tell your friends. If you don't like the podcast, tell us why.
Yeah.
Tell us about things you'd want to see. And I think one of the questions too to be thinking about is, what song would you have liked to have played on if you could pick one?
Oh, we are going to save that for another one because that's going to be
we're not doing that tonight, but that's
one I
want to put out there.
That's a great one. And I think, Chris, your shirt said it all. If you did like the podcast, go ahead, subscribe, and hopefully,
in my opinion, we did not suck.
And that's as Steve from Steven's Drum Shed says, shameless plug, embrace the suck if we did.
Oh, and I will finish with my shirt. You call it music, I call it therapy. One of the great t-shirt companies out there, Tales of a Concert Junkie. They really talk about how mental health is really that important and how music can kind of bring us all together. If you look now, I can't say it on the show, but there's new shirts about Ticketmaster. The first word starts with an F. You can figure it out. And we can get into all that next time. But like we talked about with tickets, but again, this was the DrumQuig podcast, episode 1. We hope you had a good time. We'll see you next time.
Have a good night, guys.
Rock on.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe to the DrumQuig podcast. Thank you so much.